She woke up in a cold hospital room, covered in bruises. No memory of how she got there. But what she didn't know was that the person who attacked her had made one mistake. And that mistake she would use to solve her own case. It was a rainy Thursday morning when Anna Keller's eyes flickered open. The fluorescent light above her hummed with a low, irritating buzz, casting a pale glow over the sterile room. The walls were bare, a muted shade of white that made the space feel emptier than it already was. A faint beep from the heart monitor pulsed in rhythm with the dull ache in her skull. Her throat was so dry she could barely swallow, and her lips were cracked like she hadn't had water in days. Every part of her body ached. Her ribs felt like they were wrapped in tight bands, each breath forcing a stab of pain through her side. Her arms were covered in faint, yellowing bruises, but she couldn't remember where they'd come from. She tried to sit up, but the effort sent a sharp, electric jolt through her torso, forcing her back against the stiff hospital pillow. From the corner of the room, a nurse noticed she was awake. "Good morning, Anna. You're safe now." Safe. The word landed strangely. She didn't feel safe. She didn't even know where safe was anymore. Her mind was a foggy maze, walls of blank space where memories should have been. The harder she tried to push against them, the more her head throbbed. She remembered going to bed in her small apartment the night before. She remembered the sound of the rain against her window. She remembered locking the door. After that, nothing. Just a void. The police arrived within the hour. Detective Mills, mid-40s, sharp eyes, a voice that gave away nothing, stepped up to her bed, notepad in hand. "Do you remember anything from last night? Anything at all?" Anna shook her head slowly, wincing at the motion. "Not even a sound, a smell, a voice?" he pressed. At first, she thought no. But then, something surfaced. Not a face. Not a sound. A smell. It wasn't blood. It wasn't sweat. It was sweet. Chemical. Like burnt caramel melting in a metal pan. The memory was faint, but it cut through the fog just enough to sting. She kept it to herself. For now. 2 days later, still sore and moving slowly, Anna was allowed to return home. The rain had cleared, leaving the city washed clean but eerily quiet. She took the elevator up to her floor, her heart pounding as she reached for her keys. Her apartment looked untouched, at least on the surface. The front door was still locked. The windows still latched. No signs of forced entry. But as she stepped inside, something was wrong. Her favorite coffee mug was gone, the one she used every morning, the one with the chip on the handle from when she dropped it last winter. It wasn't just missing. It had been taken. And on her bookshelf, one book was pulled out halfway, a dusty crime novel she hadn't touched in years. Anna felt a chill crawl up her spine. Whoever had hurt her had been here before, and they wanted her to notice. That night, unable to sleep, Anna took the book from the shelf. It felt heavier than it should. She flipped through the pages until something small and folded fell into her lap. A note. One short line written in blocky handwriting. "You should have listened." Her hands trembled. The words were simple, but the threat in them was heavy. She called the police, who treated it as the work of an obsessed stranger. But Anna knew better. This wasn't random. Sitting at her kitchen table with a notebook and pen, she began listing every detail she could remember from the night before the attack. The strange burnt caramel smell. The missing coffee mug. The half-pulled crime novel. The note. The smell stuck with her more than anything else. It clung to her memory, almost as if it had been burned into her senses. She searched online, burnt caramel chemical smell. One result jumped out, ethyl maltol, used in cheap colognes, vape liquids, and sometimes, industrial cleaners. Then it clicked. Her apartment's maintenance man, Carl. He always smelled faintly sweet, like candy. He'd been in her apartment just a week before, fixing a leaking bathroom sink. She told the police her suspicion, but Carl had an alibi. Security footage showed him clocking out at 6 p.m. the night she was attacked. Case closed, they said. Anna wasn't convinced. If the police wouldn't find the truth, she would. The next evening, she did something that went against every instinct she had. She left her apartment door unlocked. She set up her old webcam on the bookshelf, its tiny light covered with tape, lens aimed directly at the front door. Then she turned off all the lights and waited in the dark. The hours dragged by. The rain outside tapped against her window in a slow, steady rhythm. Every creak in the building made her pulse race. Midnight. Nothing. 1 a.m. Still nothing. At 2:14 a.m., it happened. The faint squeak of the door hinges. A shadow slipped into the apartment, slow and deliberate. The smell, that sickly sweet burnt caramel, hit her instantly, curling into her lungs. She stayed perfectly still, barely breathing, watching as the figure moved toward the bookshelf. They pulled out the same crime novel. This time, they slipped something inside. Another note. When the intruder turned toward the door, the glow from the street lamp outside caught his face. It was Carl. The next morning, Anna took the footage to Detective Mills. Carl was arrested before noon. The truth was darker than she could have imagined. Carl had been watching her for months, memorizing her schedule, her habits, even the way she brewed her coffee. He'd made a copy of her apartment key during the sink repair. That night, he slipped in while she slept, drugged her, and took her to an abandoned maintenance shed on the property. But she'd woken up mid-attack, fought back, and escaped, hitting her head on the way out. The blow had erased most of her memory. The missing coffee mug? He'd taken it as a trophy. The book. A twisted game, a way to taunt her, to remind her he could get close whenever he wanted. Anna had survived something terrifying, but more than that, she'd done what most victims can't. She solved her own case. And all it took was noticing the smallest details everyone else ignored. Sometimes, she told a news crew later, you don't need to remember everything. You just need to remember the right thing.